going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club. Yeah, it's Wednesday, and it feels like the week is going in reverse. It's a miracle that it's doing that, but I'm surrounded by four other awesome dudes that join me every week on this quest. Let's start off with Jim. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. It's been a intense week, but it's nice to come here with friends and talk about metal. So helping ease and calm the nerves is a little bit of Voivod, a little bit of Dimension Hatros here. Front to back classic for me. I have to tell Marty that we both love this record very much.
That's my favorite by them.
Heck yeah, man. I always go back and forth between this and Killing, but I do love both of these so much. But yeah, jammed it all the way through and just holds up, man. There's nothing like it, and you don't know, figure it out. Did a little digging in my CD collection, some stuff I haven't listened to in a long time. So I pulled out some Desolate Shrine here. This one is the Sanctum of Human Darkness. Really, really love this one when it first came out. I think I actually reviewed this for the site, Marty. I can't remember.
I think you did.
Yeah, I think I did. I wasn't quite in the zone for it this week that I thought it would be, but I still like it. I need to give it some more time. It's been years since I listened to it, but cool dark death metal. If you haven't heard these guys, they've got a lot of other releases too, but I think that's their debut. And I know everybody's. I think the Prescription is the guy's new band, but this is Maveth, Coils of the Black Earth. I really like this.
Yeah.
Really, really dig this. I actually like this better than the Prescription. It's just dark, guttural, just evil, really killer, kind of unique guitar sound. And everything goes right with it. I mean, you know, this is one of those albums I think sounds like the cover. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But really great. I wish I had this one on vinyl because whenever I find my way back to it, I really, really dig it. So yeah, that's what I've been spinning this week.
Right on. Good to see you as always. TJ, what's up, man?
Yeah. Up to my eyeballs in snow.
Oh yeah. It's still snowing. It's snowing now.
Yeah, it's knee deep. I should have took more pictures to send you. The door to my sanctum here. The snow is like it's up the the sills of the jamb of the door, and it's good times all the time. But after listening to this, which we'll get into more with the obvious comparisons, notwithstanding, especially because of Scalzi's voice, but. I had to pull one of these, so I listened to Traveler this week. I didn't know this was released the same year. That was interesting tidbit.
Perfect riff album. That album is perfect.
Man, I Slough Feg is just such a unique beast. And we'll get into more than the Hammers is. Yeah. So and then there's we were talking about. This is As in Hell. Impy Hora. This has got the guitar frontman from Volbeat in it, and it's just really kick-ass death metal.
Mark Driva from Morgoth on vocal.
Right. Jim, if you haven't checked this out yet, man, give it a try. This shit kicks ass. This is really good.
Love the title.
Yeah.
Everybody else forget about it, but Jim, check it out.
Yeah, you guys, you bunch of pukes. Whatever, I don't care, but Marty already knew what it was, and of course, we all know this is out, and I've been spinning this, and of course, I told you I'd have this for show and tell. I bought the deluxe, ridiculously expensive fluid-filled version.
Demonstration.
Whose fluid is that? Is that a?
It's probably something Dave spit up when he was getting his cancer treatment. I imagine they saved it for posterity. The whole thing, the whole package is just super sick. It's actually a double album, so you get the one fluid-filled and then the one splattered, whatever. But
I convinced him to get a straw in there so he could taste it and see what if it's bad for you or not.
And then ruin it, whatever. you just want me to destroy it so it won't be valuable anymore. Whatever, jealous all the time because I buy cool stuff. But and then that being said, yeah, I'm really, I think this is really good. I mean, it's, it isn't as good as the greats, but it it's just, I think there's this really cool shit on here, and I mean, it shits all over 72 seasons, which, like you said in the text earlier, Dave's been doing that pretty much throughout Metallica's whole career, really, more or less. So, but give or take one or two, but but yeah, so that's kind of the bulk of it right there.
Right on. Good to see you, Kellen. Hello. What's up?
Hey, I actually gave a listen to that new Megadeth. I did not order the cancer treatment version or anything like that, but I did.
Posers.
I'm interested because you're going to do a review, I think, with Alan and Zoller, right?
That's the discussion. I need to get that figured out.
Okay. But interesting lyrics on that, though, or a little bit of a challenge for me at times. Nonetheless, yeah, it is. I guess I'm probably closer to, I don't know if Logan got any of it, but Kentucky does not usually get tons of snow and ice, and it's been an interesting kind of week for us over here. I know Alan over in South Carolina probably got a good bit of it too. Anyway, so interesting weekend, but nonetheless, kind of locked in here and pulled this one out. This is from Australia, Elysian Blaze, Blood Geometry. It's a long record to kind of just spend an entire day with, triple LP, somewhere between kind of like black metal and funeral doom stuff. Interesting sort of piano pieces a part of this, but I think this is their third full length. This is from 2012, I believe. Osmos Records. I don't think the project's still active. Haven't released anything since this, but definitely a record you kind of lose your way in for the day. Kentucky band. This is Apocryphal Revelations with Primeval Devilish Wisdom. Not a lot of stuff coming out of Lexington, but this was released, I think, in 2020 on Nuclear War Now. Kind of like a mystifier thing going on here from a bunch of dudes here in Lexington, nonetheless. So local band. And then obviously kind of being locked in, pulled something out that everyone could listen to. This is the last couple years, last Cure record. I really dig this one.
It's really good.
It's really good. I know, like, probably, I don't know if you want to say it competes with their best known work, but I've been really enjoying this, and good sort of dark outside.
That last song is a gut punch.
Yeah, it's a great Cure record, right? Everything you kind of sign up for. So I really dig that one. But outside of that, ready to talk about some Hammers.
Right on. Logan.
Hey, I'm doing good. I will save the weather complaining to everyone else in the country, except Devin out in California. There's no need for him to ever complain about weather. We've been nice and warm, low 30s here compared to everybody else. So, as far as music goes, I've actually been doing a little bit of collecting. First off, Marty passed the whatnot bug onto me very successfully. I have
Thanks,
TJ. You're welcome.
Rough week of it.
You're welcome.
Week.
I still haven't bought shit up.
Yeah. Rough week. I bought something actually on Monday, and the issue is I keep just scooping into the fund money that I have for like shows and record stores, but then I see something on Whatnot. I'm like, $5 free shipping. Don't mind if I do. And then, I end up with albums like Nevermore.
Great record.
This Godless Endeavor. Yeah.
Oh my God. I love that record. Love it.
It's really good. This might be my favorite Nevermore record. I am by no means an expert in their catalog. I probably am familiar with about half, if not less, but this has always been a go-to for at least a decade now, I would say.
Somehow is my favorite too. It is.
Okay. It's somehow extremely technical, but then that technicality doesn't override the songwriting ability of the band. And World Dane's voice, of course, is still like the peak and the pinnacle, I think. Tracks like Born, My Acid Words, A Future Uncertain, and of course The Godless Endeavor are just some of the best Nevermore songs I've heard. Jeff Loomis is a amazing guitar player. It's a bummer he's kind of being wasted in Arch Enemy currently. Or he might have left that band. I'm not 100% certain, but just some of the riffs and the, little ditties he puts to the guitar on this album are
He did leave Arch Enemy.
He
by the
did.
way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jaw dropping. And then say what you will about the Morbid Angel stream we did last week. It's certainly doing well. It's got legs of its own. Good for it. But it also inspired me to go to the local record store and pick up this album that had been in the used bin for a couple months. It was like $11, so $11 used, and it's the lousy earache reissue. I know, not even a booklet, no lyrics, no nothing.
Wow.
But we did the stream, and I, talking to Jim and hearing other people discuss how much they like Domination, and it made me want to go out and pick it up and kind of give it a proper try, because I've always kind of written this. I've kind of written this one off a little bit in the past, not like as anything bad, but just not that it's something I would prioritize in comparison to the other Morbid Angel albums. Maybe it was because of the David Vincent vocal stuff, like the vocal effects, and the closing song "Hate Work" has always stuck out to me as kind of a weird choice, but I don't know. I've listened to it a bunch of times this week. Of course, Where Did the Slime Live? Dawn of the Angry, Caesar's Palace, Inquisition, Burn With Me. A lot of great songs on here. So I'm warming on that. And then kind of following TJ, Slough Feg for sure.
Right on.
For me, I've only been really familiar with them in the only Slough Feg. They weren't Lord Weird when I got into them. It kind of like the Hard Worlder, and this one is this Animal Spirits, which came out in 2010. So energetic, fast paced, a lot of riffs. I know, Marty, you call them kind of like Thin Lizzy inspired, and I definitely hear that on this album for sure. Was listening to this one and also Traveler today. So all in prep for Hammers.
All right. Yeah. I'm still picking through Whatnot stuff. I bought like 4 Yorn albums from the same seller for pretty cheap. This is the Duke, the 4th album by Jorn Landa. This is a solo band. He was the Master Plan singer on the first couple records that nobody enjoyed but me.
What the hell's that track on that record? I got that in my song. I love that fucking song on there.
This one or the Master Plan?
No, that record right there. There's a track on there. I got it. I can't think of the name of it right now. The black something. Black
Song.
Oh my god. No.
Dude, people, it's funny. I love his voice. He's very Dio-esque in the Master Plan stuff. In his own shit, he leans into even more the David Coverdale thing. So there's like a Coverdale Dio union in his voice. The lyrics are universally shitty. I mean, he just rhymes everything. It's just the thing I like the most about this is his performance, the way he sings. He could, if David Coverdale, obviously he retired, if he said, "Hey, Jorn Landa, go take over Whitesnake," I think Whitesnake would be in pretty safe hands. There's another Jorn CD I picked up that's got a bunch of covers on it, and there's Whitesnake, Rainbow. He leans into, you can tell what his influences are, and he sounds great singing all that stuff. But yeah, I've really, essentially power metal, but with a fantastic singer. As this one gets going, there's quite a few tracks on here. The lyrics get really rhymey and really bad, but still at the core of it, the vocalist fantastic. For Death and Glory to the Gods I Cry. This is Old Ridge. Got this a year or so ago. And this band rules. It's a one-man project, I believe. And god damn, this is just some really good pagan influenced black metal, really twisted riffing, but never, it's like a dissonant riffing, dissonant melodicism. dissonant riffinage. I don't know. My brain just twisted words around, but there's like a melodic dissonance here that's just so good and fast and scathing vocals. Occasionally the folk elements come in, acoustic-ish type of inclusion in with the riffs and the songs, but it's kind of minimal. But I've got all the stuff that this guy has done, and this might be one of my favorite ones of the bunch. Very good. And I finally picked up a copy of Skjolden I can't even say that word. Insouciant metaphysical grandeur. Big words that I can't pronounce. But yeah, Carl was on the show here a few months ago, and he is also in Majesties and touring or show guitarist for Obsequiae. Really good album. It's like 35 minutes long. It's a complete solo project. He does everything on it, programs the drums on it. And you know what? Sounds great. And the dudes from Canesterus put it out on their Alte Seelen record label. But yeah, cool cover art, and it's really melodically charged, heavy, a little bit of black metal, a little melodic death metal mixed in. Good stuff. But tonight we're here to talk about the second album from Hammers of Misfortune, the August Engine. For those who don't know, Hammers of Misfortune is an American heavy metal band from San Francisco, California. The band's style is varied from album to album, at times incorporating different elements of folk metal, doom metal, new wave of British heavy metal, black metal, 70s rock, and thrash metal. It is the brainchild of guitarist John Cobbett, who serves as the band's producer and primary songwriter. So, yes, Jim, first thoughts of this banger.
So the first Hammers record I got into was 17th Street. I think I might have reviewed that one back in the day too, but I really love that one. And I think I actually bought it in digital form back when we used to do that kind of thing. Really loved that record at the time. And back then, like I actually preferred that other singer. It took me a minute to get into Slough Feg. I wasn't into Scalzi's vocals at all at first, but things have shifted in the intervening years. Like now I really love Scalzi's voice. I really love Slough Feg. Yeah. And honestly, I haven't listened to 17th Street in ages. I can't even recall the last time I listened to it. So what was really refreshing to me was like putting this on and hearing John sing over, what are essentially, Scalzi singing over Cobbett's riffs, so that I really like it. And again, he was the original vocalist, so not a huge stretch. And of course they played in Slough Feg together, but yeah, I liked it right away. It's progressive, just like Hammers was, and to a lesser extent, just like Slough Feg can be as well. Amazing guitar playing. They're both incredible musicians. Incredible guitar players. These guys can command harmonies and leads like no other. I mean, it's so awe-inspiring to listen to someone that has a command of melody like to that extent, like both of these guitar players have. You can tell they listen to a lot of Thin Lizzy and stuff like that, and which is great, right? And even though I'm not particularly into that band so much, I'm into the guitar playing of that band a lot. So it's great to hear that over these really killer metal riffs. The only thing that kind of bugged me about the record though was like it takes so long to get to the vocals, man. It's the third track in before the songs. It's just a very strange choice on the arrangements. It's like, okay, all right, let's get to it, man. I know it's there, because one of the even though I'm more familiar with the latter half of Hammer's discography, the vocals are such a huge part of it, right? In equal measure to the guitars. And so I thought it was really odd that on this record, they waited so long for that to happen. But when it finally happens on A Room in a Riddle, like it's very powerful when John comes in, and it's just like, yeah, here we go. All right, here we go. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the song order at all, really. But I do love the presentation. I will say, and you're probably going to say, hey, this is cheap, right? Comparing Hammers to Slough Feg, but
it's inevitable.
it's inevitable. The two of the guys that are in there. I feel like Slough Feg has much more memorable songs, right? You know what I mean? Like, and really discernible. Where Hammers is like more of an exploration. There's you got to put in work as a listener because there's so many elements being thrown at you, and they're so disparate. It takes effort, but that doesn't mean that it's not rewarding, that the payoff isn't there. So, even though this isn't as and here I am sounding contradictory because I was in the Hammers first and now Slough Feg 4. But I think as your average listener, it'd be easier to get into Slough Feg first and then Hammers because of all the different elements that they push into the music. But ultimately, it doesn't get its head up its ass like for my personal taste. A lot of progressive metal can do.
Oh yeah.
It shies away from that, and it stays interesting throughout, and it's not show off. In fact, the phrasing and guitar playing, I got to call out here, man. What I love about every lead on this record, and any record where the Johns play, I feel like every note is worked out. They care about every single one. They're not just getting in there and doodling, and the phrasing is just perfect, man. And I first of all, I wish I could play a decent lead anyway, but to play a lead like that, I'd be so proud of myself because
I was telling TJ today, I'm like, God, I wish I could play a guitar like either of these guys.
Right, exactly, man. And I would say that their melody lines, their harmony lines are just as memorable as Scalzi's vocal. You know what I mean? So anyway, I know that was a long intro for first impressions, but I had to get all that out. So
right on. No, yeah. TJ.
Yeah, I mean, Jim kind of hit some of my same sentiments here in a lot of ways. I mean, the obvious comparisons are right out of the gate. I was first, because I've mentioned this before, it's like there was some thing I read where one of these guys was in something or whatever, another band. I think it might have been the what's his name was in Guar at a time or something. It was in like Metal Maniacs or something to that effect. And I read that and I was like, oh, this seems interesting. And I have a downloaded copy of one of the records. I can't remember which one specifically because I haven't dug into that hard drive in years, so I don't know. I remember not really at the time, not really being that interested in it, not hating it so much. But the same with like Slough Feg was something that I came to later, and I absolutely love that band now. And so here in this, it's like my first impression is like, oh, this is like elaborate, like Slough Feg. It's not. I mean, it's definitely its own thing in a lot of ways, but you can't pass up the comparison. I mean, it's just so kind of glaring, But I don't think that's a strike against this by any stretch. They're definitely trying to do their own thing here, and yeah, and so when Scalzi's vocals kick in, that's kind of where I land and kind of where I stay for this, but. Slough Feg with FemVox and more elaborate arrangements, and so I just it was definitely it was a good listen, right out of the gate for sure. So I mean, I've got some other points, but yeah, I mean, ultimately my first impression was pretty good for this.
All right, Logan.
Yeah, my first Hammers of Misfortune album, and as everyone's basically saying, the Slough Feg comparison is impossible. I've actually been getting a lot more into Slough Feg like this year. Like it's taken me some time, mainly because of Scalzi's vocals, but it's starting to happen. Traveler is clicking with me more and more every time I listen to it. I really enjoy this one and like the urgency and just the energetic heavy metal of that album. Really has just been a blast to listen to, especially in the car. So with that being said, this week ended up being an example of having to adjust my expectations, like going from like really feeling like I'm clicking with, Scalzi's other band to go to Hammers and kind of maybe expecting something a bit more immediate. Like I knew they were different and there was something more progressive about Hammers of Misfortune, but I don't think I realized just how well and how prominent the progressive elements are in this album. Like it really caught me off guard going from that instrumental opening track to just an acoustic like female song interlude for 4 minutes, and then it doesn't immediately get to the actual song even after that. Like the amount of investment and time you have to put into this album really threw me off on the first spin. And honestly, it's kind of true for every single song. I don't think the album really gets into any discernible gear or sense of urgency. It feels very well thought out and intentional all the way through, and it's not rushing it. It has the pace that it wants to go, and that's kind of how it keeps it. So I kind of realized I had some work to do. Like I was definitely not there on first listen. I think I was more scratching my head and trying to mesh this progressive rock, this decidedly progressive rock, like 70s style, with this more heavy metal oriented guitar playing and riff style. Like you can tell when they ratchet up the riffing into like we're borderline thrash sometimes. It does have some energy and weight to it, but then at a drop of a dime we'll go into like this soft acoustic section that really takes the energy out for me a little bit. So I was
a lot of acoustic guitar on this album. I was surprised. I like how they work with it too. It fits in really nice.
It's very creative. Like as Jim was saying, everything was so meticulously thought out and perfectly placed. Very creative. I can't fault any of it. It was just a bit of a surprise on first listen, and I wasn't sure if I was going to click with it or not. So I guess we will find out.
Yeah, this is my first time ever hearing Hammers of Misfortune. I'm just like hearing it the first couple times. I'm like, God, why? Another one I dropped the ball on, because I'm a huge Slough Feg fan. Love it. And it was interesting trying to sit down with Metal Archives and connecting the dots, who's in the band and what bands they came from. It seems like all of them were in this band for a hot minute, Unholy Cadaver. Or this predates all of this other stuff. And if I remember, it's been 100 years since I've spun this. Black metalish type of stuff. Mike Scalzi's in it, Cobbit's in it, Janice is in it, the drummer's in it. So Hammers kind of, I guess, is a spiritual successor to this, but nothing like it. And yes, it is easy to go to the Slough Feg comparisons, but listening to this album this week, there's moments, there's like one song on here, it's in my notes, it sounds like it could have been on Traveler, but the riffs in Hammers is far more complex. There's some really thick layering of guitars on here, and when they link up together, it's amazing. And there's like really twisted serpentine like riffs going on at times. It's like they took the Slough Feg, they kind of erased the playfulness of the Slough Feg riff attack and made this way more dense and serious, which makes it, you guys are exactly right, it takes a little time investment to get your head wrapped around some of this stuff. But one thing that stands out is, in my first impression, is how free they sound. They're not constrained to any sort of idea what metal is or should be on here. They're writing this music for themselves, is what it sounds like. If you like it, great. They're going to welcome you into the fold. But if you don't like it, then I don't think they care. And the fact, you start off your album with an instrumental. Odd choice, but you know what? You listen to the song and there's so much going on. It's so dense and thick. The guitar work's so amazing. It's like they're telling you right here, we don't need vocals to entertain you. And we're gonna pull you along regardless. If you have any sort of musical interest, you're going to be pulled in. They don't, they add these prog elements that Jim was exactly right. They're not disgusting about it. It's so minor. It just feels like a very metal thing, but they're not afraid to play with other ideas and elements. And it makes the album very refreshing to me. And yeah, Jim's right. It takes them a minute to get to what feels like the proper song, but I think with the mission statement, the way they started this album out, it's telling you, hey, you're in for something a little bit different than what you might be accustomed to. So yeah, first impression, wow. Musically, I don't love every song on this album, but I love the musicianship on every song on this album, if that makes sense. Kellen.
So the mission for the week was to actually bring some prog to the album club. I know it can be a difficult task for some of our members who aren't so into the genre. So I was thinking that at least half of the panel would hate me for this choice, but turned out I think a little bit better than I anticipated.
It's not the gross kind of prog. I mean, there's a prog. I talk about the hairless cats in the sweater. This is not that type of.
Yeah.
This is not that type of prog, and I can completely appreciate that.
Yeah, I think obviously everyone on for Album Club has some kind of knowledge and appreciation for Slough Feg, so it definitely helps out. And Tropics, I wanted to bring that up. So I was listening to, before we get into like my initial impression with this, just because it'll kind of spell out some of potentially your criticism. There was an interview I was listening to, or conversation that Jeff Wagner had with Corbett. And he said that they had tried to write a much longer conceptual prog metal record, and no one was going to pick it up. So they were forced to sort of pare it down to 45 minutes or so in order for a label to actually take any interest in it. So there is some unreleased version of the August Engine out there that's much longer than what we get here on Cruz del Sur in 2003. But I think that probably affected a little bit of the track listing and sort of the arc of the record. I was kind of looking for a progressive sound. There's a lot more here to enjoy, though, I think, other than just the prog side of this. Obviously, with the legacy, for me, this region within California and this kind of music, another band that we haven't talked about at all is Borkus Helm, who had some very strange sounding records, but were really important to establishing like this kind of sort of Bay Area epic heavy metal. And I think Slough Feg, and for the sake of the conversation today, a band like Hammers of Misfortune kind of step into that space and share some lineage there. But it's a band that's been around for a long time. Cruz del Sur, when I was kind of getting in traditional metal, was one of the first labels. This is a very early Cruz del Sur release, one of the first records that label ever, put out. And it kind of has been along my journey. They've moved over, I think, Century Media and Metal Blade. So they've been around for a while now, and they've kind of climbed the ladder in terms of major labels within the States. But I think a band that kind of creeps much earlier on to the scene before a lot of interest in traditional heavy metal kind of arrives, and at least is sort of the newer sort of generation of interest. So it's kind of an interesting band for me to go back and trace the beginning.
Before you get into your question, the one thing I did want to mention before we got too far into this, one thing I couldn't put my finger on it all week, but once I kind of realized that I couldn't let it go, I didn't read any of the lyrics, but it feels like a concept album. The thing doesn't even feel like that to me. It feels more like a rock opera, like a metal opera. I don't know if you noticed it. There's kind of like Sabotage Streets, that's like Meatloaf metal, a lot of keyboards, but this here, it's like a very unique rock opera type of feeling to it. Very cinematic at times.
Right. Like I guess this is kind of going to spill into whatever. We're just chatting.
Yeah.
I hear that opening instrumental track as, for me, that, to your point of like an opera or a play, I hear that as like sort of your opening scene, and that sets sort of the drama for what's to unfold. And by the time we get to that acoustic piece, Rainfall, it almost seems like where you would roll the title sequence, right? Like that's how this album kind of unfolds in terms of its pacing and structure. To your point of having this kind of a different kind of like short acoustic intro, get into song or something like that you're used to getting. The how long this narrative was intended, I think, is why they probably took greater liberty in terms of the track listing and how it worked out.
Yeah. And the way Mike sings, he's got a spoken. He does it in a melodic way, but the way he sings, it kind of feels like a narrator, like reading you a tale, or that's kind of the whole rock opera vibe to me. And you had the lady singing in there mixed in, like there's characters involved. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I should have saved that for my own shit.
Well, it'll spill in. I'm sure we can chime in. We
yeah.
get into songwriting composition, but just for the question that I have tonight, kind of has to do with how I got into this band. So the earliest efforts of classic American heavy metal bands like Manila Road and Sirith Ungol are marked by a transition from progressive rock tendencies into what would eventually become known as epic heavy metal. Hammers of Misfortune seem to revel in this point of evolution to a point, but they consistently get grouped into the progressive side of the equation more often than not. Why do you think that is?
Logan.
Pondering. Let me ponder my orb.
I think the problem I have with this question is I don't know what the hell prog is. I have an idea what prog is. Anyway, go ahead.
I think my relation, like, if you want to answer for me, Marty, that's fine. But I think my reservation is like understanding specifically where Hammers fits, being so new to Hammers of Misfortune and not really realizing that they're a prog. They're such a prog band. Like I had no idea. Whenever I heard anyone talk about Hammers or saw Hammers mentioned, it's another like borderline new wave of traditional heavy metal band. Never I heard that they had progressive leanings, but never that they were a prog band playing, traditional heavy metal at times, or a perfect merging of the two. I think you mentioning when they kind of came into the scene is a good point, Kellen, because to your credit and against mine, I guess, I always associated them more as a part of the new wave of traditional heavy metal scene, which really does not take shape until later and is something entirely different from what I think Hammers actually is. So and this all ties into the fact that I had like a revelation on my first listen and realized that my expectations were all off. But to kind of dive into the prog thing, listening to this, I certainly thought of a lot of 70s progressive, like, UK prog rock outfits. I mean, Wishbone Ash was actually the main one that came to mind for me. Very guitar forward, very acoustically driven as well. A lot of the Wishbone Ash songs, especially on Argus, will like work in acoustic passages into very much electric guitar driven songs, like beautifully, very much similar to what this album does. And Wishbone Ash still admires and holds the riff in very high regard and uses it perfectly on tracks off of Argus. I definitely saw some Jethro Tull and Yes in here as well. So that's mainly like the prog I was thinking. As far as why maybe Hammers leaned into it, I don't know, maybe they were trying to stake their claim on being somewhat unique and differentiating themselves from Slough Feg. Like there's such a bleed over into other projects that all these guys had that maybe they were looking for a unique flag to plant, and this prog rock thing was kind of where they wanted to be and where they wanted to settle and make something their own, separate from what Slough Feg was doing and what,
which
I guess,
is tough because
projects.
Scalzi's voice is so distinct. You can't get away from that comparison because of the way he sings.
Exactly, because the delivery to me is still of that Slough Feg, variety. Like, and it makes me think of Slough Feg still, but just like a slightly different variation of it. Where Slough Feg, it's like you're living the adventure as it happens. This is more of like you're being told the adventure by a bard hundreds of years after it's happened, So I don't know if I answered the question, but I think it certainly seems like they intentionally leaned into the progressive thing more so than the heavy metal thing. Like maybe they came from a heavy metal background, but here they were going to let their progressive spirit kind of fly free, if you will.
All right, TJ.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole epic metal thing, I hadn't even ever heard that term bandied about until you guys brought it up one day, and so I'm kind of like, I mean, I get it. I get what you driving at when you say it. And I mean, for this band, being that I'm so kind of, I know of them and I'm familiar with the formula of what they are. In listening to this record, I mean, I wouldn't. I couldn't see where you would want to call this epic, and so much as the kind of tried and true way that you guys use that term for epic metal bands. I don't hear that in this. Progressive, yes. Prog, in that way, to use it more as a pejorative or whatever, it's this prog. It's like, no, I don't know about that either. It's definitely, it's ambitious arrangements and somebody in the comments has said that this was supposed to be a longer record than what you'd said. And you get that sense like there's something going on in this that's not there. And I did pick up some of the lyrics in that last track there. The girls are singing about some woman on trial who goes out and then they cut her in half or something. And so I don't know. It's like, I don't know what the deeper issue is in these lyrics, if they're talking about witch trials or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I can see where there could be some debate over this issue with this, maybe, based on this particular record and this band, but again, I would definitely see that this, I think it's just one of those things where they're skirting the edges with so many other things where they're adapted, where it's reminiscent of the more epic bands, like, the Manila Road. You guys say it's epic. I think that's when I first heard that. I was like, I didn't even, I was like, what? I never really heard that term used. And I think about it now. I was like, I guess that makes sense. I guess it seems like an apropos type of genre pinning for that style and what they do. The Entroponetics guy. Yeah, it's not the same as Man of War, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if that's right, but definitely, I think that there's stuff going on here where people might want to try to pigeonhole them in one way, and this band is. I don't think they're trying necessarily. They're trying to eschew that and trying to be their own thing, like Logan was leaning into. They're trying to drive their own truck down the road with metal and being unique and singular, and they very much are. Of course, Scalzi's voice notwithstanding, like you say, I mean, who sounds like him? No one sounds like him. Nobody even pretends. Nobody fakes him or apes nothing. He is such a singular and unique voice, and so you pin that to something, and it's just like, oh, it's a Slough Feg thing. So that was my first. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I definitely feel that this is definitely more progressive, and in that way, to call it epic, I don't know. I think really the debate just kind of comes down to, their affiliations and some people that listen are more familiar with one side of them or the other, and that's what kind of drive. I think that's probably what drives that conversation. At least that would be my take on it anyway.
All right, Jim.
So I agree with Alan, man. You're not going to be slaying orcs to this music. Yeah. I think he said it really well right there. I don't hear when I hear epic heavy metal, there's always sort of a leaning into, at least in some songs, there'll be the sort of that medieval waltz or, medieval style melody lines, kind of somewhere in there, you're going to have that kind of takes you back to that, trudging through a muddy field with your, mace in your hand, and there's none of that here on the Hammers record. So I feel that like thematically it doesn't align with epic heavy metal. And I think that musically it doesn't either. They're when Hammers does any kind of slow down type of thing, I do think it's more enmeshed in not just 70s prog, but also 70s hard rock. Like I said, I hear a lot of Thin Lizzy on here, and not being super into them except for the guitar playing, I like this better. But yeah, it just doesn't smack of that genre at all. And I do think the really unique vocals, and I'm not talking about Scalzi's here, I'm talking about Janice Tanaka's, when she's backing him up on those melody lines. I mean, I don't hear that style of vocal employed, or at least those melody lines that she's utilizing, or when she's singing on her own as well. They don't sound like epic heavy metal to me. They sound more, dreamlike, and leaning more into the progressive realm. Also, there's additional instrumentation here and stuff like that. And then if we're going on to like another part, like I got to call out the song Insect. At the very end of that, John's doing this weird like waka waka thing on the guitar, man. It's like he's playing on the wah pedal, and he's just like, doing that chicka chicka thing on it. And it actually is probably my least favorite moment on the record. And like, I don't understand like why it's there. But to Marty's point earlier, it's them saying this is, and I kept saying John earlier, and I apologize, I'm old. Mike and John's working together as guitar players, saying we're going to do exactly what we want, and we don't care what you guys think. Hopefully you're in for the ride. And I think that's just another element of that. But you're not going to hear, and I haven't heard any epic heavy metal that did something like that. You know what I mean? Now, you can say the argument is like, well, we listen to especially, early Manila Road. I mean, there's a lot of hard rock leanings there too. Yeah, and you'd be right, and I would argue that in both of those bands, there's in this band, Hammers, and in oh my God, Manila Road, there is some Rush influence going on there, and so I feel like you can point to that, but where thematically and Manila Road and the Shark take it to somewhere, where we're slaying dragons and we're in that fantasy realm. This, I mean, even the title alone, the August Engine, we're placing ourselves thematically like hundreds of years past that. We're into the industrial revolution and beyond. We're talking about engines here. We're not talking about brutalizing serfs, in the kingdom or whatever. So it's just it's a different, take. Though I think when you reach back to their influences, there's a commonality. So Hammers is kind of forging their own path with that. But I do think that the seeds of origin for the bands mentioned in Kellen's question, do have like a crossover, but then they deviate, as their recorded output begins to take shape.
Yeah, the thought of this being epic metal never crossed my mind. And it lacks that epic 6/8 triumphant march in the music. It doesn't have that. This band just feels like, they're on a planet by themselves. And hearing prog thrown into the mix again, prog is something that I rarely think about. It's a style I don't care about. It isn't because I don't like it. I mean, I like Opeth. I don't ever listen to Opeth anymore. Wishbone Ash, people consider that a prog band? Seriously, I'm asking.
I do. in a
Okay.
sense. I mean, I don't think they're necessarily as highbrow of a prog act as like Genesis or
Yeah.
Vandergraft or something. But yeah,
Okay, I've heard some Wishbone Ash stuff. Zoller made me a tape back in the day, and good stuff. I never considered it prog though. Again, I don't. When it bothers me is when I acknowledge it. You know what I mean? This doesn't have that super clean, high end apartment minimalism type of vibe to it. As far as what in my head I see as prog. Clean. I mean, listening to fancy jazz records or prog records on a stereo, I don't get that vibe at all here. I think TJ kind of hit the nail on the head. They've got, half of Lord Weird Slough Feg in the band. Both of them are amazing guitar players. They work very well together. Scalzi's voice is completely unique. And John Cobbett was in Lord Weird during, many would argue, is their best era. He got on it Down Among the Dead Men. He stayed through atavism. That run of records is, holy crap, amazing. An amazing body of metal. So you get these two guys in the same room, in the same band. You got Mike singing. You're going to want to do something to differentiate something from, a band that might be a bit bigger and been going a bit longer. But I think they do that very well here. And like I said, I like how the acoustic guitar is layered in quite effortlessly. The female vocals, though I don't like them all the time, they add a nice dynamic to Mike's kind of, like I said, he has a kind of a narration type of way he sings. So, I mean, yeah, I guess now that you guys talk about it, I guess there are some prog elements here, but I never once considered this a prog album. It doesn't feel that way. It just feels like a very free and adventurous metal record. What do you think, Kellen?
Yeah, I mean, I think all those are fair points. There's a lot going on here, so to try and but I guess the first part I thought about was the time period in which it emerges. Like some of when I think of the earliest stages of the bands that I mentioned here, like it's not till 84, maybe 83, 85, where like I think the 6/8, sword and sorcery, endless surf ruining on the battlefield, like that kind of stuff. Like that's when I think epic heavy metal as we understand it today kind of really takes shape and develops all the familiar tropes and themes that we kind of can identify. The earliest stages of it are very weird to me, and that's I think I would say a way you could describe this band as well. They're weird, and I don't mean it as a pejorative sense, but it's kind of strange. Those early Cirrus Ongol records, those early Middle Road records are not as I think well defined in terms of a sound, even though maybe the imagery specifically for Cirrus Ongol would be. Another part I thought about, so like the time period coming out in the 21st century here, I think they kind of works against them if you want to operate in the earliest years of the genre's history. The other part was like, I don't know if you want to call it class, but we've always kind of had this association when those bands sounded very dirty and street. There was a blue collar aspect to those bands. And there's a level of sophistication to Hammers that I don't associate with like the kind of bands that I would necessarily, so like the one that we're talking about from the past, right? There was like an ugly, gritty sort of a sound to those albums, despite their weirdness. And there's a certain level of polish here. Once again, not in a bad way, but does not sound American to me. There's a part of this I also think, to your point, like about Thin Lizzy or Wishbone Ash, wherever you want to point towards. But there's like the melodic ear to this band doesn't seem as rooted in the early part of American sort of sound for me. I think it's not a bad thing, but it just does not. It pulls them away from a lot of the traditional American bands for me. So I guess there's a bunch of different things going on there in terms of where I think that could be. We'll probably get into when we get into the production notes, things that also help to drive home the prog aspect of this band. because I think how they chose to voice the guitars, for example, is something that sort of walks that line a bit more into the prog world for me. But I always associated them primarily with a very strange heavy metal scene coming out of the Bay Area. And what I don't really care necessarily if you call it a prog or epic or whatever, but all those bands share a certain hallmark in terms of not being as man-o'-war-ish as you would potentially associate with what goes along with American heavy metal, for example.
Yeah. All right, then. Let's discuss the musicality and composition of the August Engine. Logan.
Yeah, talking about prog already honestly segues perfectly into this part of the conversation. This is highbrow, like prog level entertainment. I think I kind of already made the point that to bring it back to Slough Feg just a little bit. I think you guys kind of said why it makes sense to address these two bands somewhat similarly, just because of the vocal similarities. But as I said, Slough Feg feels like you're experiencing the battle and the fight, and you're right there in the thick of the action. And this one, it feels like you're hearing a second account or a retelling, or a poetry, a bard, a thematic theater performance, like eras after the battle that they're discussing. So it's like two different viewpoints of similar sword and sandals, sci-fi, highbrow fantasy kind of stuff. So just definitely a bit more of a passive experience, and that was something that I was continuously trying to come to terms with as I was diving into this album more. Just how much of a passive journey it is. It's not trying to jump out at you that all that much. It's kind of just wafts over you, and it comes in waves more so than anything. Like they blend together all these different elements in the prog and the metal and everything so seamlessly. It's pretty impressive. And of course the true highlight, I think, is the guitar work. Already talked, it reminds me of just the way Wishbone Ash would do it, especially on their album Argus. The acoustic guitar is so perfectly incorporated with the electric guitar work. It just doesn't miss a beat. It feels so natural, them being together. I think the best example of this is just the opening instrumental August Engine, where it's like as it's fading out, it's just got this driving acoustic guitar part, and this heavy riff kind of comes over it, then it goes away, then it comes back, and it's like this tug of war and this back and forth between a heavier and a lighter and a heavier, and the whole while the acoustic is just there, steadfast, really being the driving force. And I feel like that's the majority of this album is driven by the acoustic guitar parts. And those passages are the ones that I still kind of struggle with, to be fair. I felt like I wanted more heavy riffs. I wanted them to explore a bit more of what they could do on tracks like Insect, like when that song comes roaring into view, especially tracks like The Closer, where they really start to explore just the grand epicness of like the guitar tone and how they're layering the guitar riffs at the very end of that track.
That feels like a proper Doom song.
It
Heavy
really
as hell.
does, man.
Yeah.
It really does. And I will get to that later on, but even then they can't avoid this desire to incorporate acoustic sensibility, dynamic vocal performances. I mean, like the vocal variance is another big part of this album. The Tanaka's vocals with Mike Scalzi's vocals, and I know John sings as well, but there's such variety, and the urgent vocals of Mike Scalzi are kind of contrasted against the more laid back and like peaceful at ease vocals of Tanaka. And there's some other guest female vocalists as well.
Yeah.
And they really are like on polar opposites in a sense. And they they try to exist in the same moments as well, which really do lead to some of the highlights of this album. But then at the same time, there's some of the parts of the album that I can't get into, or when the vocals are really being more long and drawn out and forlorn and stuff. That's especially the female vocals. That's a little bit of when I'm just like, why is this not clicking like I feel like it should, you know? But there's still a lot to consider, and honestly, I think I'm still kind of finding my footing in this. And it's been 8 listens, so I think this album certainly takes some time. There's a lot of eccentricity in like the choices of phrasing. Like Jim, you already mentioned the closing of Insect. It catches me every time. It feels like all of a sudden the band chooses to like go off the rails and try to drive off a cliff for no reason, where like he's like palm muting the guitar and doing a fade out thing. It's bizarre, but I like it.
It's like Pac-Man, waka waka waka.
Yeah, it's those like intricate moments that, you know, really make this kind of feel special in a way. So there's a lot here, a lot to consider, and I think to a certain extent I'm still considering it, but it is definitely a unique album compositionally.
TJ. Muted. Still muted.
There it is. Is that better?
Yep.
All right.
Well, it depends on what you're going to say. If what you're going to say is wrong, then just stay muted.
I'm never wrong. It's an unfortunate fact of my life. So yeah, musicality and comp. I think we've touched on a lot of this. You know, I think the songs are while they're very engaging, and like, you know, we're talking about how much, you know, it kind of takes a little work to get into this. I don't think that these songs, they don't meander. The journeys don't lose you with these tracks.
Good point.
They're very intentional. They're very thought out. I mean, I never got a sense. You know, to me, the riffs all felt like they all made sense. There was nothing going on that kind of came out of left field for me personally. But they all were just so really well done, and the songwriting was so very intentional. There are some moments that I felt went on a little long, but I see, you know, finding out now they had more grandiose intentions for this record. I guess I see why there's some bits on here that they had intended to be much bigger in scope. Like the Rainfall track, that to me, that song just felt like it was just, to me, that felt like it should have been an interlude or something, and they should have moved on to the next piece. I didn't hate it. It just felt like too much for me. I got some. Sorry, I'm stammering over here. Notes there. And then, you know, again, the female vocals in spots, not all of it. There's just moments where they feel a little out to me. They don't feel a little,
she's pitchy. The last song in particular. Plus
yes.
They double it. That's the song I like the least on the album, because they double these pitchy vocals, and it's nails on a chalkboard.
There are moments where it feels like they're out of sync, or I don't entirely hate them, but there's just spots where it's just like, you know, I was just more enjoying Scalzi's voice, but they're trying to have this impact with this, trying to broaden the scope of what they're creating and bringing the female aesthetic into it. I appreciate it. I don't know. There were just spots. But you know, the hard and thrashy riffs are just so killer. They're just, even in the spots where it's just he's just riding the E, but then they do these little intermittent gallops and stuff. You know, it's really well done, really cool. The songs are just the acoustics and everything, they just paint a really great sonic portrait. Overall, the whole thing just comes together. And again, my chief complaint is just I think the female vocals got a little bit overutilized and a little bit pushed up too much, and there's spots where they're a little bit kind of whatever, and I just wanted more of Scalzi's voice to be present on this. But even that being said, everything all the performances on this are just are great. Even the parts where the girls are doing things that I'm kind of off on, it's just like, well, that's my opinion. Whatever. I still think they're those girls on there sing very well. I just don't. I just think it was just kind of the way they utilized it in the songs, and for I don't think that in these songs, like Jim said, these songs don't they don't get up their own ass. I like that because it's so apropos for prog shit. Because there is some stuff that it gets to be so pretentious and up and just up here in this kind of like, woo, look at me with all this amazing bullshit I'm doing. It's like, fucking just write a song. These are songs. These are really good songs. They're well crafted. And 44 minutes. I listened to this album once the first time and then didn't realize I had actually listened to the whole record. I thought I had only listened to part of it, and I'm like, oh wait, I guess I did listen to the whole thing. It just doesn't feel like it just doesn't feel long. It is a good listen. It's strong and well written, and it's just and there's so much on here that I already appreciate from other things that these guys do. It just made for a really great listen, and they're just everything, the drums, the guitar work on here is just top notch, and it's just great.
Jim.
Yeah, I mean, we've all, kind of said it, but, these are all just amazing musicians at the top of their game, and they're sharing their capabilities with us. Introponetics said that, this is a band with, a narrative, and he's right. Scalzi's a storyteller, and, Cobbett is too, and his playing, and together, they take you on a journey. I think, the narrative feels stronger, because I think it's more direct in like Slough Feg, but it's still there here. I mean, you can tell that there's, a line through all these songs. It's they are intertwined. It's a single story, but musically it's a single story too. And I think that's where the real genius is the cohesion of the music. It despite the fact that it has so many disparate heavy elements in it, where it's hard to pin down genre wise. We're setting aside the prog now. We're only talking about the metal. And it has so much going on there. Like TJ said, it all makes sense. They're able to weave their riffs together through all the filtering through all their influences and making something that kind of comes together in your mind, and it doesn't sound like it's all over the place, even though it should. And whatever X factor it takes to make that happen, I don't know, because I can't play guitar as well as these guys. All I know is that as a listener, I'm very appreciative of it, and I can recognize the skill behind their instrument and they're sharing for us. So I'm not going to be the dead horse here. Anybody that has a real love of music can listen to this and know that these are extremely talented individuals that know how to write not just a song, but they know how to write an album, and a whole album that works together, and in fact just wouldn't be as powerful, in its individual parts. Like to me, it works in its strongest form, listening to it back to front, and not. This isn't something I'd feel comfortable skipping the songs around on, even though I don't like the order of the songs. I'm not a fan that we're a song 3 before we hear the vocals. I still feel like skipping around the tracks, like, well, I want to listen to this one, I want to listen to that one. It takes the energy out of it. So the real genius of John Cobbett and Scalzi and Tanaka all together is that they put together an album that is strong together. Every song supports it as a whole, and keeps you listening and looking for more, because it's layered, right? When you can play this well, you leave little musical nuggets for the attentive listener to kind of pull out of it, to pull out of the ether and to recognize, and that's the joy of listening to something that is so considered as like a record like this. Is it'll keep rewarding you on subsequent listens, so yeah, thumbs up to them for that.
Right on. Kellen.
Yeah, I just want to add to that note in terms of the transitions to this album. So like the opening song, we get August Engine Part 1, and that moves into Rainfall. That transition I think is really cool. So there's the lead guitar, I'm guessing it's Cobbett. He plays and as they're sort of making the move from one song to the next, how they create the transition is he's holding on to these sort of very sort of clean single note sort of guitar lines. And I want to say, Janice. So Janice is playing like in the chord, kind of dancing around these sort of single notes. The Scaldi and the drummer Chewy, who has a crushing performance on this album, I have to say. The drum work here, when this album gets busy, he plays incredibly well. But he is just on sort of the Scaldi and him are doing the rhythm section, and it's just sort of this straight palm muting thing. So they're sort of all restrained, but on sort of opposing sides of things, meaning you have these clean notes and then just sort of this barren straight head sort of riffing thing. And all it does is build tension, and sort of quietly and casually, it sort of starts to build steam. So the rhythm section gets a little bit faster. The hi-hat that the drum that Chewy's using goes a little bit faster to match up with the rhythm section. It just builds momentum. And then we finally get Cobbett and Janice sort of jump into the fold after all this sort of rhythm momentum has been built. So now they're all busy working, and all of a sudden, stop. Acoustic guitar comes in. They sprinkle it in. Same riff jumps back into play. They keep going along with it. Stop. Acoustic guitar work comes in. So there's this back and forth on and off thing they do before finally they just cut it off and you get Rainfall. So they've like teased this acoustic song for the closing moment there. And I love how they do that. It's like completely leading you to the next one, but it feels like they're just kind of playing around, but they're trying to set one up. And it's important to Jim's point about like hearing this album in that order for that purpose. That sort of seamlessness and transition would be completely for naught if you didn't go according to how the album was actually built. I mean, those are just things that I we can talk about. I think that you're all on point in terms of the guitar work being sensational. I'm going to jump into my favorite track and talk about that more at length when we get to favorite songs. But I guess that was my one example that happens very early on in this record, where you can hear there's a very deliberate way in which they're trying to build these songs to work together and create a certain degree of tension, but ultimately you should find some resolve if you carry the narrative throughout the entire listening. So it's as much as it's sort of off-putting and confusing to go from these like fast metal parts to all of a sudden stop tart, here's some acoustic sort of work coming in. I think it totally, I get it. I just will follow up with Rainfall. I'll be the one who like that choice there. You have multiple women singing on that track. And there's like violin, cello. Instead of it just being an interlude, at every point, what could be potentially your interlude track on a metal record, because they lean in sort of the prog songwriting, these like are fully fleshed out ideas.
And they prop it up early in the album. It's not a deep cut,
Yeah, it's not like
really early.
we've talked so many times about albums where like, yeah, it's a passing whatever minute and a half. Is it great? No, but whatever. Just setting up the next track, and that's fine. I think they're all such incredibly gifted musicians that they did not want to lose an opportunity to add additional element going on here. So that'll be my sort of contribution here to the songwriting and pass it on to you, Marty.
I don't have a lot to add here. Just the songwriting composition. I think one thing, I think TJ said it early on, listening to this album, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of moving parts here, but the takeaway I get from it is none of it feels forced or out of place. Everything flows very seamlessly. They're very conscious or cognizant of whatever they're trying to accomplish here. They execute it effortlessly. And the thing I like a lot about this band and Slough Feg too, if we're going to throw them on the table as well here, the fact that I think the 70s influence, the 70s rock influence, there's a lot of room in these songs for jamming. I don't want to say that there's impromptu guitar stuff going on here, because everything does sound very calculated, but they always in the songs leave a sizable chunk of the song for a lot of guitar interplay, whether it's twin leads, whether it's, they're trading off Mike and the Cobbler trading off solos. It's just, in fact, the August Engine too, probably my favorite song on the album.
Yes. Okay.
The fact that they've got all these words and all of a sudden the words in the song just kind of end. And there's like this elongated piece where it's just dense, awesome, well-composed, like these serpentine riffs that go into these, like an explosion of solos, but it's never gross. It's never showboaty. It's all very much, it's service of the song, maybe a little bit of playfulness in there too. They're just so good at it. They embody the 70s in that manner. They give room for the solos. When you have two guitar players that are that good, why not? Why not get a little more mileage out of it and so much more color? That's why Multiple Spins, I started to like the intro to the album better. It makes sense why they put an intro or an instrumental up first. It's a great song, and it didn't need vocals on it for me, from my point anyway. But yeah, the musicality and composition, I mean, it's great. Like I said, they really weave a lot of things together in a way that makes sense and is very listenable. Like TJ said, I was thinking, oh my God, when I threw this in, I'm like, I got a feeling this is going to be a long ass listen, but it's like, oh, okay. It flows so quickly and so effortlessly, which is a sign of a well-written album. Production, Logan.
Certainly, one of the other highlights, if not one of the big highlights of this album, is the production for sure. I mean, it's warm, organic, just very natural and bright. Definitely fits with the music on display here. It's kind of helps with this whimsical story-like feeling that the album kind of puts you in, and I don't think I would change a thing with the production. I mean, it perfectly captures all the dynamics and the transitions and all the variety of instrumentation that the band has on display throughout this album. I mean, just once again, only analyzing the opening instrumental number, I mean, it's perfectly incorporating the acoustic guitar and this like heavier electric guitar seamlessly at the same time, and you can hear both. And really, as I said, the driving part of that song is the acoustic, and it's the one that really you feel the weight from. And I think the production does a great job of incorporating the acoustic guitar so seamlessly without it losing its place in the mix. Like, it is absolutely right where it needs to be. Whenever the piano kind of crops up, I really enjoy how the piano feels. It almost kind of feels like Rainfall to signal the one track where it does use this like slight cascading piano effect. But whenever it comes in, the piano's like kind of just drops onto the music that's happening, and it's definitely perfectly incorporated. The vocals in the mix are, I have no complaints there. I think the bass tone and the drum tone and drum feel is one of the most 70s and progressive feeling elements about the production and really this album overall. Both are great performances by great players, and I think absolutely are highlights of the album and of the production. Like that bass tone is so warm and so present, and you can follow it the whole way through. That was one of the highlights of listening to each of these songs, is hearing what the bass was doing and just how it was, bringing warmth to this album. Yeah, I honestly, I have no issues with the production at all. I think my favorite part of it actually might be the guitar tone that they capture, like that super melodic guitar tone that still sounds extremely heavy. My example of this is the penultimate moment of The Trial in the Grave, the closing number, where that doomy melodic, just it's so drenched with melody guitar line kind of comes in to carry the album to a really epic conclusion, and it just sounds perfect. I absolutely love how the guitar sounds on that, heavy yet beautiful. And yeah, the album is similar.
All right, Kellen.
Yeah, this is another record where it's like benefits from having a bit of an older sound.
Dude, I was gonna say, I love it. It sounds like amps. There's no amp modulators. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so it just doesn't feel tampered with too much. I do want to bring home the point, a very sort of concrete or specific way that you can sort of differentiate between a prog record and a metal record is the level of distortion through the guitar work. And I think that's something that they kind of walk the line with. To Logan's point, there's like parts of this where it's like, this could turn thrashy, but so much of the melodicism in the guitars, and they sound cleaner in a way that reminds me of a much older, in terms of choice for guitar tone here. It sounds a little bit older to me. Same thing could be said with the bass work. I don't think it sounds like a really raw, gritty bass tone. It doesn't have that kind of distortion to it. So the way they chose to voice how much gain all their instruments were getting is important for its prog consideration. But space for them to operate, it definitely gives them that. The other part is, once again, like drum choicing, the tracking of how the drum sound works also really well for me. This is going to come up a couple of times recently in Album Club, but I really enjoy like a 70s drum sound. And that's also something that they kind of lean into along with the guitar work. So no real complaints here. I think as complex and still as sometimes messy as or maybe busy as things can get, I think it works on this record. And I had really no issues with the production at all.
Jim.
Yeah, I agree with Logan that one of the highlights on this record is the production. I mean, John Cobbett is not just a great guitar player; he's awesome in the studio. He's awesome behind the mixing board, and he knows how to get the sounds that he wants. And Kellen's right on. They put in just enough distortion in their guitars to keep it metal, but not so much to make it like thrash or death. By having just enough gain there, it's heavy, but it doesn't bury what they're trying to put forth. It doesn't bury the notes. If they're doing any kind of string skipping or, picked notes, picked scales and all that kind of stuff, all that kind of shines through. There's kind of a glimmer to it that doesn't get muted in any way by, down tuning or oversaturation of the guitars. The drums are clear, clean, and crisp. You can hear them. Very heavy. Yeah, it's very heavy. It's metal sounding. It's organic sounding drums, which is awesome.
Yep.
Of course, got to bring out the bass. The bass sounds really great. It's not quite loud enough for me. I do wish that it was louder here. It's there, but not as present as I would like. Not surprising given like the level of guitar playing, 6-string guitar playing musicianship that Scalzi and Cobbett bring to the table. They're kind of like, hey, we're complete, badasses here. We're gonna put ourselves high up in the mix. Though, I mean, I'm not super familiar with Tanaka's playing, and I can super hear enough of it. But for her to even be in a band with these guys, I know she could bring it. I know she's been in a ton of bands too, and I even like her brief stint in Fireball Ministry, and that album I can actually hear.
She was also in L7.
L7, yep, yep. She's also in, I think, a band called Winter Thrall, Black Death band from So I mean, she plays all kinds of heavy music, and so for her to do that and bring on this really killer vocal on top of it is a testament to her own abilities. And that's another thing about the production is, man, the vocals sound amazing, And again, no surprise, Scalzi's got a very unique voice that it even took me a while to get it, but I absolutely do now, and but to capture that voice and then intertwine it with not just Tanaka's female vocals, but they had on Rainfall. Let's see, what was her name again? I had it here a second.
Oh, I got it wrote down here.
Lorraine Rath. Yeah. She's an amazing singer too. To intertwine all that together and make those vocals sound rich and have depth. Again, you got to know what you're doing in the studio. So, Cobbett and the gentleman who worked with him, in the studio did a great job. And something I thought about while listening to this record, I was like, man, the production it's so professional. It sounds so great. And Tim's right. There's definitely a 70s undertone to this.
Yeah.
We talked, they mentioned in the chat, and actually says on, I think gives a little bit of the story in Metal Archives too, that they struggled with shopping this. And, to know you're making in the early 2000s, like a progressive leaning metal album, that's, tuned to standard with clean singing, with varied instrumentation, female vocal back. I mean, they had to have known it was going to be a tough sell, but they did so much, they put so much time and effort in the studio to making this thing sound perfect. Like it really does. And to me, that's a testament to their dedication to their art as they understand it. Like you said, Marty, we're doing this for ourselves, love it or hate it. And they really gave themselves all over to it without thinking about, where's it going to land after, without thinking about who's going to understand this and put their weight behind it, as a business. They only thought about it from the artistic perspective, and they gave it their all, and it really shines. And shows as a result, and that's why we're here. This record's 23 years old now, and it still sounds fresh. It still sounds amazing. So I just commend them not only for the level of proficiency they achieved in the production realm of this record, but also the fact that they had to have known going into it that there could be some challenges in terms of its acceptance, but they didn't. It didn't sway them at all from spending enough time in the studio to make something sound great. So kudos to them for that.
Hell yeah. TJ.
I really like how close up and hard edged this production is. I like that it's so upfront. Definitely, like the guys have said, there's definitely a classic vibe here.
Yeah.
Those influences really shine. It's upfront, powerful, but it's not obnoxious. Everything just, it's not all washed out in reverbs. The vocals get some reverb treatment, but everything else is just kind of like clean and in the room and big, and it just has a really, it's just a really great and individual kind of production for this record. It's got life to it without a lot of the other kind of things that tricks and treatments that they give to get that out of it. Because everything is just so kind of clean, even the guitars are just kind of like borderline broken up. It's more of a Marshall turned to 10, than saturation from a Metal Zone. It's just, it has that classic feel, and it's just kind of perfect for this. It all just comes together so well. Just how upfront and crisp it is. It's just so great. But
Yeah, I've got little to add to this other than, like I said early on, that I love the fact that it sounds real amps turned up loud. There's not a lot of sample sound replacing on the drums. They sound like a real heavy kit. The mix is fantastic, and I like the fact that not only all of that, but the vocal performances, they're not super squeaky clean perfect. And I like the fact that they kept the performances that are on here, even though the last track bugs me a bit. It's still, I get the feeling that if I were to go see this band live during this era, they would have sounded live like they sounded on the album, and that there's no, facade here. You're getting them stripped down to the bare bones, real essence of the band here. And it's just some older amps turned up really loud and a great engineer that knows where to put everything. The vocals don't sound too loud in the mix. Everything can be heard. Again, Jim noted the bass might be a little buried at times, but there's some cool stuff poking through here as well. So yeah, I'm really happy with the production and the mix of it. I think my only real complaint of the album is that claw cover. I mean, it's pretty barren, but that has nothing to do with production. Let's talk about least favorite songs. Logan.
I kind of like the claw cover, Marty. It's a little menacing. It's like, minimalistic, but still menacing. Yeah, I think it works. It could be the talent of a sex condor. You don't know.
Have you seen the vinyl edition album cover?
Is it the one with the propaganda looking post? I use it for the background of the thumbnail. It's better. It's better. Yeah.
So songwriting, composition, no bad songs, but
you didn't do that one? I'm sorry. Did I skip you on that? No, we're on least favorite songs.
Oh, well, that's what I meant to say. It's
okay.
I'm out of place. You're right. I meant to say least favorite songs. Sorry. No bad songs on here, but I mean, I do have issue with the track order, and I mean, it's come. I know it's a concept album, and everything has a purpose and a reason for being where it's supposed to be, but I, as a listener, still have not wrapped my head around how this album kind of flows. Like it bugs me a little bit, just the transition from great high impact energetic instrumental August Engine Part 1 into The Rain. That one just to me, it just takes the energy out of it. Rainfall, I mean, it takes the energy out of it. It takes the excitement that I kind of had going into it. And I understand the Rainfall is probably trying to do something a little different than I want. Like, Kellen, I liked your metaphor early on about it being like the credits or something in like a play where it's more of like you catch your breath before the first act really begins. But I've still been listening to this as a metal album, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then the placement of the acoustic parts in a lot of the songs kind of catch me off guard. And really that first section of the album takes too long to really start with A Room and a Riddle. And then again, they kind of do this as well with The Trial and the Grave. Probably my favorite moment on the album is in this song, The Trial and the Grave. But I think it takes so long to get there and is so drawn out. And there was the vocal conversation that you guys were talking about earlier. I'm not a big fan of some of the vocal choices on that song, and just all the different tracks that or all the different songwriting choices that 11-minute track goes on. It just takes so long to really build up and get going. So I do have an issue with how it starts and kind of ends. And been trying to wrap my head around figuring it out and not having that issue. So we shall see. On to what I do like. I mean, there's really, as I said, no bad songs on here. I do like the music that is on, like Rainfall, and all the acoustic parts are beautiful, expertly done. If I were to highlight my favorites, I enjoy both parts of the August engine. Like we've already talked about that seamless transition of the acoustic guitar to the electric, and this ebb and flow of like the way that really both tracks close, but especially the August Engine Part 2 closes in just such a epic, and like, to me, that's really where it feels like they're doing that, like a jam band thing, that they're really opening it up and just having a good time bouncing off of each other and making some interesting just guitar lines and melodies really sing. And at the same time, though, there's that thrash bite to the guitar that I really enjoy, and I feel is maybe somewhat too absent at times. My other highlight is the Doom Parade. I actually really enjoy the poignant, like emotional feel of this song, and this is where I enjoy the vocal trade-off between Scalzi and Tanaka the most. Like there's a one-to-one trade-off in like the verses and stuff, and there's this acoustic section that is broken by a scream from Tanaka before kind of really closing it, and that song feels cohesive and I think really works well for me. And then once again, my favorite moment on the album is the closing part of The Trial in the Grave. I just wish I could get into the rest of that song as much as I enjoy the last like couple minutes, where it just really embraces that epic doom kind of feel, and we get that just beautiful guitar line that sings and weeps. It's, I don't know, it's definitely my favorite part of the album, but I'll pass the baton.
All right, Tej.
Room and Riddle. I love the ending of that track. It's got great riffs. August Engines 1 and 2. The part 2, it's got a really powerful middle, and then just great riff work overall for the whole, thing that they did with that. Doom Parade. I think that track kind of is very cohesive in that it really brings kind of everything that they're trying to do into the one song, the femme vocals and stuff. I think it just kind of shines all that stuff all at one time. My least faves, Rainfall. I like the song, and I like the flow of the record as far as that goes. I do get the guy's points about how it kind of takes a minute for everything to kind of kick into gear, but you start out with a strong instrumental, and then Rainfall kind of goes away, but it's still, I don't hate it. It's just the vocals are kind of weird, and it just seems longer than it should be. And the last song, Trial in the Grave. I like the song, but there's just moments, the female vocals feel a little bit wonky at times, but there's so much cool shit, and it's just a well-written track. But in terms of, best and worst, in my opinion, or least in fave, whatever, it's in my least fave list. So, yeah.
All right, Jim.
So for me, I really love A Room in a Riddle. I think it's super powerful when we finally get to the metal with Scalzi's voice behind it, and it's just really crushing. There's an amazing solo about 2 minutes and 45 seconds in, and then 4 minutes in, there's this weird warbly effect on the guitars, this crazy flange thing they're doing, which is unexpected and really neat. And like 30 seconds in, there's a cool hammer on riff. There's just so many cool moments on this song, and it's just a great, payoff for the buildup of the first two tracks, which, I will say, even though I do not like it starting with the instrumental at all, I think it was a really bizarre choice. The riffs on that song are awesome. I love the the palm muterus on that, and like Kellen was talking about earlier, how it just speeds up and it just kind of builds and builds. It's really, really cool. It's super tight, really clean. It's just an amazing song. August Engine Part 2 is just tons and tons of changes. It's a really great track as well. I do feel that there's so much going on. I sort of kind of get lost in it a little bit. I almost feel like it could have been maybe broken up into Part 2 and Part 3, and maybe that would have made it a little bit better for me. There's so many riffs in it that I start to lose it a little. But all the riffs are good though. You know what I mean? It's we're kind of picking things apart here. It's still a great song. But favorites are definitely a broom and a room and a riddle. And I love Doomed Paradise, man. That song starts acoustic that goes right to the metal. I love Scalzi's and Tanaka's vocal harmonies on this. And then as it kind of hits this crescendo near the end, like the vocals and the guitars, everything is just really gelling really tight. It's just a really powerful song all the way around. And so my third favorite track is the one that seems most polarizing. I really liked The Trial in the Grave. I was not expecting like a legit Doom track and not expecting it to close the album, but I think it's done really, really well, man. And it works. I think I'd like to hear more of that in Slough Feg. It was really cool hearing Scalzi sing over tempos like that. And I think I know what Logan's talking about. I mean, the harmony guitars on that song, man, as it's playing out, are just freaking beautiful, man. They're spectacular, dude, and just an amazing and perfect way to close the record. So those three are definitely my favorites. 3, 6, and 7. I kind of, and I Rainfall. I still really like Rainfall, but I just wish it was somewhere else. Its placement is second on the album makes me like kind of want to like get past it, but there's nothing really wrong with it, and I think I would like it a lot more if it was somewhere else. But
it doesn't feel like a proper song to get the album started yet,
Yeah, it just feels out of place.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been better served later on in the record. So it's not really a dig on the song itself. It's just its placement makes me not want to hear it as much as the other ones. But the good news is 3, 6, and 7 more than make up for it.
Right on. Kellen.
Yeah. So for me, I think the one song on the album that you could sort of pluck from the mix, pull out, and sort of throw out there as, hey, this is the one is Doom Parade. I think that one on its own, probably you could pull from the sort of narrative structure of this release, throw it out there, and people are going to be like, this is a great metal song, whatever. I don't mean to diminish it, but I just feel that's like, to TJ's point about sort of it feeling cohesive or together, I don't get the same sort of like wandering sort of prog aspects to this. Side A of this, if you want to play it out from August Engine Part 1 all the way through August Engine Part 2 for me, is killer. The first three tracks for me all are like basically in the course of listening to this are one listening track for me.
They flow like that. I agree.
I group them together, and I totally see where Jim's coming from. We're like, I'm waiting for vocals to arrive, and when they do, it's like, where's the metal band? I get the confusion there. It sort of throws you off in terms of expectations you're used to getting. It is probably what made the album stand out to me, is being different and weird and quirky, and change sort of, okay, what am I going to get from August Engine? Because it's not going to be like what I'm used to hearing. Man, I know Jim does a great job of like pulling together lyrics and usually quoting them. They usually have to do about awesome, being a metalhead and how cool it is, or how awesome Satan is. Usually falls in those two categories. Man, the last 3 stanzas to the August Engine Part 2 are great lyrics. And I love getting into that. So I was reading along with the August Engine Part 2, and we finished the lyrics, and it's like at 3 some minutes. And I then look down at the track, man, we've got like 5 more minutes of this left to go. And what you get are these 2 sort of peaks and a valley of guitar work.
Awesome. I love it.
Man, the soloing, the first solo that comes through is unbelievable. And I know we're working in tandem here, but it's like, I'm listening into the background and doing the dishes, and I like break a plate, and I'm like throwing like I'm absolutely losing my mind while trying to live my domestic life, because the first solo in this is just sensational. I love the guitar work that happens in the back end of the 4 or 5 minutes that happen in the back end of this song. It gets to your point. I think Logan kind of mentioned sort of the jam bandy aspect of it. So you reach this sort of summit of solo work, and it gets really quiet and sparse again. And they make the same sort of climb out of the valley to another sort of solo. It's unbelievable. That track feels the most epic, the most sensational. It goes to the greatest heights on this album for me at that moment. The one complaint I have in terms of the track listing and how it all plays out has to do with a repackage August Engine Part 1 into Insect. If you pay attention to the riffing on that, it's very much the opening song, but now we get it with a lyrical sort of, background to it. It opens.
Didn't notice that. Yeah.
It opens acoustically, and you get this big triumphant moment, and then it jumps into August Engine Part 1. They repackage that opening song basically to the back end of the record.
Kind of like on Crimson.
It just feels kind of like it's one thing to do a thematic call if it's brief, like I think there's like that kind of callback stuff is awesome within a song, and an awesome, over a grander sort of structure for a record. But to do it so blatantly for the length of time they do it always kind of threw me off. And it's one of those things, you listen to an album and you're like, did I mess? Is it on repeat? Like, what am I missing? I feel like I just heard this. Yeah. Anyway, thank you. That's the one part of this record that always never sat well with me. It felt like they rehashed it to an extent that felt uncomfortable. And I honestly, when I think of the closer, Trial in the Grave, that one feels like we didn't get enough of this. Like whatever was left on the floor, on the whatever, that they did not release for this. Probably, I would imagine there's more Doom elements on the original sort of album release, because it does not quite sit well with what the rest of this record is. I don't just in my imagination. I have no proof at all on this hypothesis, but I think there's probably more elements at play on the original score that have like doomier elements. So this doesn't sort of stand alone the way it does.
All right. Well, there's nothing on this record I dislike other than I'm going to go with my least favorite on here, and it's the Trial in the Grave. And it is just because of the vocals. I wish they're a little pitchy. I kind of wish Mike sang this one, but it stands apart. It's interesting the end of the album with this because it stands apart from the rest of the album. It's the heaviest. It's very doomy. The main riff of the doom part of the song, it's very interesting riff. It isn't just a standard chord progression. There's a weird movement and flow to it. Some really interesting ideas in it. I really like that. I wish they would have expanded more on it, but they go to like a quieter non-metal part they alternate between the two. The non-metal part on it just doesn't fit as well with that heavy part. It seems like they stripped this one down to the core maybe a bit too much, considering the weight that's above it and the track listing. There's so many layers and so much stuff going on. You get to this, it feels like they took too much away. It's too stripped down and too They left it too bare bones to ride out. It probably has something to do with the concept. But I still like the song. I still think it's a good song. Little pitchy in the vocals though, and yeah. As far as favorites go, my absolute favorite on here is August Engine 2. There's like this meaty crunch riff in the first quarter of the song. It's just fantastic. It's just such a good riff. So heavy and mean. Then they kind of alternate that riff with like a open chord type thing that really piles on like this melodic warfare up against this more nasty twisted riff. Very cool. And Janice's voice, she adds it very well in the mix here to interact with the other voices. It's a nice dynamic. The riffs get more serpentine, more complex, and yeah, I really like Kellen said, how they're building to something and they strip all the words away and they ride out the rest of the music with this amazing back and forth attack of awesome guitar stuff. It's just so inspiring to hear great players dueling it out like that. Not in a necessarily competitive way. It's just it's just so colorful. It's very cool. I really like Insect as well. Other than the acoustic guitar piece at the beginning of the song, there's like a Mike and Janice singing. I'm assuming it's Janice. In the guitar harmony, the chords, it reminds me of a Pink Floyd song. The melody line, it sounds like Pink Floyd. I'm like thinking it might have been Pink Floyd because it's the way he's singing, and but anyway, that goes away quickly. Twin lead guitar lines come in and then all the metal kicks in behind it. And the meat of the song, though, it sounded like the one song on the album that could have been on Traveler. It's like, okay, this sounds like something that was maybe a little too complex compositionally, that reworked it for Hammers. I don't know. It's just the way it sounds to me. But Doom Parade, the acoustic guitar really finds a fantastic balance on this record, and it does. It's all over the album, noticeable in here too. They really work it in at the right spots, and it never sounds out of place or forced. It's very, very organic. And I did want to comment, we've already talked about how the album starts, but Rainfall, I really like the fact that it's a very somber acoustic piece and a very poignant piano accompaniment. The piano line in it is actually the hook of the song. There's like this reoccurring piano line, very sad. It packs an emotional punch, which keeps it makes it feel more like a traditional song, just stripped down to a more beautiful, sad, somber type of thing. Lorraine Rath's voice suits it very well. But again, I come to enjoy the way the album was paced, but initially I would also agree that what were they thinking with the way this was, because this should have been later in the album. I'm waiting for a proper song at this point. I want A Room and a Riddle to hit with just, the punch to the face. There's, again, on that song, A Room and a Riddle, there's a touch of Lord Weird all over the playful riffs on this one as well. So it's kind of interesting how cross-pollinated these two projects are sonically. And again, it's impossible to get away from that. You have two very charismatic songwriters, guitar players, and a voice that is very unique. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about Judgment. Final thoughts. Logan.
Yeah, I ended up liking this album a lot, but something kept me from like really loving it and connecting with it fully. This album to me feels like it's a mood piece, and I don't think I was prepared for how reserved it is and just how progressively inclined it is. I think my preconceived idea of it and what I was kind of looking for maybe going in could have been a detriment that I've kind of held on to throughout this whole week of listening to it. Like for whatever reason, I have been listening to a lot more Slough Feg recently, and I was, back of my mind thinking about the energetic, just the energy, the more attack oriented, like heavy metal approach that Slough Feg has, and the more immediate approach. And this is not that. This album is so much the opposite in a way. Like it feels like the counterpoint to Slough Feg, and I think for me this might be one of those listening experiences where I almost need to put it away and come back to it, because I think I could connect with this. Like this does have a elements that I do enjoy from some of my favorite albums. I also think that maybe the weather overall, like it was still a very cold week here in New Orleans, and I was definitely leaning towards a lot more black metal, or like a lot of death metal as well. And I think this just didn't necessarily incorporate into where I was kind of at, where my headspace was kind of at. What I'm envisioning a couple months from now, it's going to be a beautiful April day. It's going to be like, the sun is out. It's going to be 75 degrees. I'm going to go out, going to walk along like the levee here, and this album will be playing, and I'm sure it will click a bit more. But for now, it's like a strong 7 for me. So we'll hope to revisit it for sure, though.
Gotcha. Teach.
Album gets a personal 7. I'd buy it in a while. It's a great listen, great pick by Kellen. I enjoyed it. I had some nitpicks, but not enough to put me on. I definitely would put this in my stacks.
Jim.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. I'm with TJ. I would buy this in the wild. I wouldn't, I would pick up, or I would pad my Slough Feg collection first. Above it, I like the more straightforward songwriting approach on those records more, but I do appreciate what's going on here. And again, it's one of those that you're always going to find something else to kind of pick out. There's so much going on. I still argue that the August Engine Part 2 should be 2 songs. I don't agree with you guys there. We're definitely in different alignment here on what's our favorite and least favorite, but yeah, there's a lot to give here, and really there is no bad song on the record. Even though its song order is weird. Well, weird's the name of the game for Hammers, right? That's what it's all about. If they did what we expect them to do, then it would be Hammers of Misfortune. So, let's just leave the crazy song order and all the other weirdness as it is, and accept it for what it is and enjoy it for what it is.
All right, Kellen.
Yeah, so I'd agree. I got to this band as a consequence of hearing about Lord Slough Feg, and I am happy to discover this band as a consequence. They are the sort of weirder side project, I guess, is how I kind of came across them. They've strung together a strong career though now over a couple of decades, and I'm going to go back and listen to, I guess I should read Jim's review of 17th Street is what I should do. That's still out there in the world. Because I've heard that's also
wormgearzine.com. Anybody wants to see our old stomping grounds, go check it out.
I'll revisit the zine ever since you trashed my Regurgitate record. But but nonetheless, I think this band's kind of a unique entity that comes from a different and sort of strange time period in American heavy metal history. And if you're kind of discovering them, this is a good place to start for sure. Their first record, is there some black metal elements going on in there. But this one I think is sort of the turning point and probably one of the better records in their catalog for anyone who's getting into this band.
I must say, Tim, it's amazing that you remembered it was TJ's birthday, because everybody in the band didn't have a clue it was TJ's birthday.
Look at this shit.
It was Monday. Monday was TJ's birthday. Everybody wished TJ happy birthday.
I was off the show for 11 damn months. And here's Tim. Hey, TJ had a birthday. Are you keeping a calendar? Stalking me? Well, thanks. Somebody cares.
We don't.
No, so wait, they got me my favorite thing for my birthday. Nothing.
Nothing at all. All right. Happy birthday, Teach. What are we at? Close the Judgment, final thoughts. Yeah, this is the first time I heard this band. I don't know why. I've never checked them out. I love Lord Weird. I'm a big fan. Have been forever, and well, not forever, but as soon as they entered my hemisphere, I've been a fan. And this is definitely a more complex beast, but very similar in a lot of ways. So, yeah, this is an album. I know Scalzi Only Sing is only part of the first 2 albums, so those are the 2 I'm going to look for first, I guess. In the wild, it will come home with me, and honestly, I'd give this an 8.5. I think it's a really good record. It's a level of musical maturity in a very unique way that you don't hear often, and I think that's why it might be a little off-putting for some people, because it's hard to compartmentalize where it's going to sit in the metal, rack. Where are you going to put this? What subgenre to file it under? Some people care about that, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's just really well considered and executed music. So great pick, Kellen. Awesome. And who's got next pick? Oh,
I got
everybody get
I
your
got
bongs
something.
cleaned out. Here we
Yep.
go.
Yep. Actually, this is a lot.
Vomit bong. Here we go.
This is a lot faster than any wizard bong or vomit bong music. This is actually kind of a sequel to a previous Album Club episode. It was another Kellen pick. Kellen picked Spawn of Possession's Cabinet, and I'm actually a big fan of that era of death metal. For me, the in-boss, though, is Necrophagist's Epitaph. So,
Oh boy.
2004
Get your
technical
protractors
death
out.
metal. Yep.
Protractors and
Come on.
abacus and use the stars to
Yeah.
align and to find your way home through death metal. Yes, we'll do it. Good pick.
Cheers,
I don't know if
guys.
I've ever heard that record.
Yes.
So cool.
And I've lost the
I've heard very little from that band. Few things, but not much.
Corey, do I put my bong away?
Why not both?
No, keep the bong out and then just smash it over your head before you do a bong hit.
Right on. Okay, everybody. Before we get to these guys, I do want to say, before I forget, show notes. Today we are back in the review field. Ben, I put up a review for Ben. Did the new Ruins of Beveras album. Check out that review. Very good review. Decent album. And Friday, no topic yet, but Jake from the Upside Down Church and Charlie from Weft and Panopticon will be coming back on the show. Jake's first time, so no Alan this week. He's dealing with storm stuff down in South Carolina, so he's gonna take the Friday off. So there'll be me and those 2 guys flying without the professor. I'm sure we'll get it figured out for you next week. More reviews. I've got some more to edit, so that's coming. We're back. So hit those reviews. We appreciate you folks. We're doing them for you, so check them out. You might learn something. Also check out the Discord server. Anybody have anything they want to add other than happy birthday, TJ?
Happy birthday, TJ. Yep. More reviews. Oh, that's my next project. More reviews.
Jim, how's the tape selling? Everything's good?
Yeah. Sales are tapered off, so yeah, everybody hit the distro, buy more stuff.
Links in the description. Kellen, what's coming up for you? Anything?
I've got a couple of things kicking around, but I don't have a set date for when they're going to happen yet. So looks like sometime in February will be something, but as soon as that gets finalized, I'll let you know.
Awesome. Glorious Dead news. The new album is still under construction. The foundation of it's recorded. We still have vocals, solos, guitar harmonies to do. Mixing and mastering, of course. And we're going to be releasing a single, 12-inch single, 3-song single with the long talked about ABBA cover. SOS is on it. And a new song that didn't make the cut of Cemetery Paths, and an old demo song redone. So 3-song, 12-inch. I got to get that straightened around here, and I have some ideas for anyway, blah, blah, blah. That's coming out soon, hopefully before the next album comes out. Definitely before the next album comes out. Stay tuned here for more information and news as it drops. Thank you all for watching, for joining us on Wednesday night, and stick around. Have a good one. Cheers, everybody.